was September 1st.
Oh, can't forget that. Especially since we took a break.
I think, yeah. So I realized, I just been going and going. So anyway, so hello everyone. We are back from our little bit of a break, and we're glad that you are here. So if you are tuning in and looking at the replay, because I don't see anybody on here right now, so if you're looking at the replay, then we're glad that you are here for our discussion. I am Dr. Ifetayo Ojelade, based in Muskogee Territory in I was gonna say Los Angeles. Oh my goodness, I can't believe that, in Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm originally from Los Angeles, though. And I am here today with my colleague, Dr. Kenja McCray, who is an assistant professor of history over at Clayton State University. And so we are going to talk about this new comedic series on Netflix called Survival of the Thickest. So I saw it and I thought it was funny, and I wanted to hear what the professionals would say about this particular series. So I know one of our other colleagues is going to jump on a little bit later, but I figured we would start the conversation. How you doing, Dr. McCray?
Fine. No complaints, especially after watching such a good series.
Oh, good. You liked it. I was worried because I was thinking some people would be like, oh, this is corny, but I really, okay. So your first impression is of it.
I thought it was witty. I'm not saying it was perfect, but I thought it was really witty.
Yeah.
What about your first impression?
Definitely, I thought it was witty. I have seen the comedian Michelle, is it Michelle Buteau?
Yes.
Okay. I have seen her stand up, and Love Assist stand up has not I have not been drawn in by her stand up. But
Right.
when I saw the series, I was like, I enjoyed it. And I actually watched it 3 times. I watched it again last night because I wanted to be prepared for this. And I enjoyed it. I thought it was very witty.
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
I did see some complaints about it, or should I say complaints, critiques.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I don't think I'm that deep into the world of media and communication to
Oh,
have
yeah.
noticed, like, oh, well, it's a standard kind of starting over woman's story about starting over, right?
Mhm.
That really didn't bother me because I was going there for escapism.
Mhm.
Looking at the, I guess, the preview, the image, that the graphic that drew me into it, I thought, oh, this looks fun. And it
Mhm.
was. And my experience was that I was pleasantly surprised that it
Mhm.
was deeper than I thought it would be. So it still was relaxing, but it was complex enough to take on deeper issues of identity and self concept and the way others see us, while still being light and funny. So I appreciated that.
I did too. So I feel like it wasn't Black trauma porn, but it addressed some issues that we experience in our community. And it did play on that trope of like starting over, you find your boyfriend doing something. By the way, y'all, if you haven't seen this series, there may be some spoilers in here. Your boyfriend's cheating on you, your man's cheating on you, and you decide that you're gonna, start over. That part, yeah, is a trope, but I saw that there were so many things that, as for me as a Black woman, that I could relate to, and that I wasn't used to seeing on television. And I was like, oh yeah, it's true. And it was funny to me. So I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
So, what things did you see that you weren't accustomed to seeing on television as a Black woman?
Okay, first, that the object of desire in the lead character is a thick Black woman. And I thought it was hilarious where she meets Natasha Karina and she's like, I'm a size 18 and 20 or 20 on my good days. Nobody thinks of a woman that is a size 18 or 20 is like a sexual object that all of these men are after. And I loved it. What about you?
Yeah. So I did appreciate that aspect of it. And the I think Michelle Buteau also, what I appreciate is that she doesn't shy away from complicating those types of identities and issues.
Mm-hmm.
So in some other spaces, it might come across as flat to me if the writers are only dealing with her size and gender, right? Maybe social class a little bit. She's not rich. She has to make a living, and that's a part of the storyline. But I like the way Michelle Buteau, at least as a, holistically, also takes on color, skin tone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Race.
Mm-hmm.
So she says, I think in her stand up, I did watch her stand up, and like you're saying, it doesn't resonate with me like Survival of the Thickest. But I did like that she said she's like the working class people's Beyonce. Like they can't aspire to Beyonce, but they can have her.
Oh,
So
I missed that. She said that. I missed
she
that.
did.
I watched it 3 times and I missed
Right. Yeah. Like, so I think she kind of takes a shot at colorism
it. Uh-huh.
or skin tone and how it might play into who will be okay with her character. Her character was, I think it was Mabel, was her
Maybe.
name?
Maybe.
Mavis
Uh-huh.
being central, right? And like you're saying, an object of desire for a lot of different types of men. I think she does glance at color and how, okay, well, she's just a thick, she's a thick version of Beyonce, which is different from maybe a Gabby Sidibe being the central character, right?
And so I think the additional thing to that is thick, like you said, kind of this light skin, thick person, and then with freckles. Because it's one thing to be light skinned, it's a whole other thing to be light skinned with freckles. And there's a whole thing. And I don't think you and I have even talked about that in all the years that we've known each other. Like me growing up in Los Angeles and being around a lot of light skinned people with freckles, and then like people ascribe all kinds of things onto you being a woman with freckles. That can be a whole interesting. Yeah. Why are you shaking your head?
I've never heard this. I'm so I'm intrigued. I want to hear more.
Yes, I mean, I can't. I mean, so this is like my adult version of me now thinking back to when I was younger and seeing that kind of stuff. So I don't think I have a good analysis of it because I haven't talked to people about that. But yeah, there was like lots of conversation around people having freckles.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. And I would love to be able to have dialogue with people around that. So yeah, definitely if you got freckles and you're in a particular category. I thought one thing that I thought was interesting, which is a kind of a universal experience that you and I have both talked about, is say you're out someplace and you're exercising and you have form-fitting exercise clothes on. You and I both know that you're going to get a response if you bend over and it's a group of men. And so she's bending over, and my normal reaction is like looking and kind of like ugh, and she's like, "Hey." So I thought it was hilarious of her response to the men and then when they're looking at her behind.
Um, I chuckled at that too. Um, but I wasn't. I think her shape. So she's thick, right? What people call BBW, right? But she's also, not only is color and colorism an issue that she tackles, but body shape. And I think, I don't know if it was in this or her stand up, she referred to her shape as a drumstick emoji. And so, like you, yes, so like you were talking about the nuances, right? Okay, there, yeah, like I think she's saying she's top heavy. So maybe, you know how behind closed doors and sometimes in public spaces we have these conversations about, oh, well, you know, I wish I was, or people desire blank. And so if I get attention for being that thing which I didn't think people desired, it makes me extra happy. So I know I'm being objectified, but right now I'm happy to be seen. We'll deal with the objectification in a different space or what have you. So I have a friend who refers to herself as being built like a Coca-Cola can. So I think then, yeah, just kind of thick, but also more like with no waistline, not a Coke bottle, right? Not a pear shape. So I think
like a rectangle, basically a rectangle,
like a cylinder, right? Because rectangle might be she's thin. She's like sort of her side view is thin, okay. But yeah, she's saying she's thick, but not that kind of very curvy thick. And so you know, we like thick, we're okay with thick, we like thick, we desire thick, but Black as a, you know, people, members of the Black community or whatever, we would prefer to see a Coke bottle shape or a pear shape. So yeah, going out in public with a form-fitting exercise outfit and being pear-shaped and getting attention from Black men might be a different experience than if you are what she calls drumstick shaped, and you don't often usually get that kind of attention, right?
That's hilarious. Okay, well then you got to include hourglasses in there. Some folks got hourglasses.
So okay, so Coke bottle and hourglass don't mean the same thing. I thought Coke bottle was hourglass.
Maybe, I guess, because I just think of it as like maybe like part of your top is small and then you go out like that.
Okay.
But I could be wrong. I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, just the fact that they had that in there, because like when you talk to other folks, like, you know, European Americans, they don't understand the whole thing about behinds and how much attention is paid to Black women's eyes. I mean, you and I know that. Like, so, I mean, there's whole conversations that end up happening around the world of a Black woman's behind. And so for that to be captured in there, I thought was funny.
Right.
And I just love the whole focus on body image and like taking different bodies, and how she kept talking about like she just wants women to love their bodies, and like when she meets Natasha Karina, and remember how Natasha Karina, she asked her, she said she wanted to take her measurements and she wouldn't let her, and she was like, well, what size are you? And Natasha Karina says a 4. She says no. She's just like, immediately, you're not a size 4. And she doesn't let her use a corset, no body shaping wear. She's just like, if I'm going to dress you, if I'm going to style you, then, you know, nothing like that. You just wear your curves. And I loved that.
Too. And I think that's one layer of what we were seeing and experiencing. And I like that. But another layer I think that made me keep coming back episode after episode was the fact that Natasha's played by Garcelle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Garcelle is showing up in it looking natural. Mm-hmm. Garcelle was showing up. I thought, wow. Because a lot of times either people get the body done and or we center the person who overcomes so many odds to have the youthful svelte body of, you know, a person in their 20s. And we know that a lot of us are struggling. Otherwise, what our average size is 16. So most of us are struggling to be otherwise. Mm-hmm. But Garcelle shows up looking like the actress, the model, is aging like a lot, like most women. And she doesn't hide. Like a lot of times we'll say, see, go into the grocery store and see National Enquirer, such and such woman, actress, actor gained all this weight and looks horrible or whatever, like they may not say it in writing, but the suggestion is, and she was trying to hide from us. We got a picture of her just going to the grocery store, going to exercise, right? No, it's Garcelle. Garcelle is glamorous Garcelle, but she's thicker. And then then on top of that, there's this dialogue that takes on, and you don't look like the typical, cinched in person, lady with shapewear on, and shapewear and the jobs, shapewear and the boob job, shapewear and the BBL, right? The Brazilian butt lift. So yeah, I really appreciated it.
Okay, but talk about her in the first scene with the green fit and her walking down the aisle at the funeral.
Said talk about her in the green outfit.
When she walks down the aisle at the funeral and stands in front of her ex-husband's casket.
Okay, tell me what you thought about that scene.
I was dying laughing because I was like, it's so inappropriate and narcissistic.
That was supposed to be her character.
Yes.
And I think a part of the character being like that allows us to hear dialogue that might be or interior thoughts, right? So I think the device of making her character inappropriate, for example, says what's on her mind, does what she feels, allows us to, for an auxiliary character, get into their interior thoughts. Yeah, I think, and I like that.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have expected that whole thing to happen. That she was dressing her for a funeral, and I was like, yeah, she was. She had to. I think I told you afterwards that I think that was you I was talking to with the black leather gloves. I was like, I'm gonna get me some of those. So I'm like, who goes to a funeral and makes a scene like that, and then films themselves?
I've seen some scenes at funerals, and I think you have too.
Yeah, well, yeah. Oh, okay. Well, no, I'll take that back. Let's move on. I have seen some fun stuff.
Yeah.
But
it might be a little exaggerated, but yeah, we've seen that happen.
I really liked her character. Even though she's very narcissistic and self-centered and everything is about her, I think it talks about, the complexities of, there are Black women that are like that may have some kind of modicum of success in their career, in like outward success, but can be very lonely on the inside. I thought it was very telling where, she's talking about her ex-husband and her ex-husband cheating on her and leaving her for another woman. And she sat there and she was bitter all that time. She was a beautiful woman and she wasn't able to move on with her life because of all that bitterness. And, I mean, I've certainly seen women that are like that. And so, I mean, I think it speaks to another experience that some women have of just being stuck and not being able to move forward. So I enjoyed that.
Yeah, and I guess the theme in the show was being stuck in certain ways and how you find your way forward, whether it's, and how friends and having honest people around you, like an honest stylist, can help you move from those spots of being stuck. So I did like that. Yeah, I did like that now that you mention it.
Yeah. Now, what about, so I'm interested in your thoughts about her relationship with Jacques. So Jacques is the photographer who comes from money, who's the famous photographer, and he's trying to kind of put her on a couple of things. And I feel like they kind of pulled out a couple of formulaic pieces where she's saying, kind of think in the first episode, my identity got wrapped up into yours and I got lost. And so part of her leaving is not just about the fact that he has been unfaithful, but the fact that she wasn't clear about her own identity and destiny and what she wanted to do with her career. And I had a little bit of a critique around her being resistant when he was trying to put her on, like with Essence. Like, so he was saying, I'm not going to do the shoot unless my girlfriend is a stylist. And I'm wondering your thoughts about that. Or did you have any thoughts at that
I
part?
did. Yeah,
Okay.
I did think about that. And so we're on opposite sides of the issue.
Uh-huh.
I thought that I understood why she wouldn't want to do that, right? And have
Mm-hmm.
all of her professional connections entangled with this, with her boyfriend's identity and reputation, and want to make a mark on her own, develop her own footprint. I I was okay with her saying no, I don't want to do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
What were your thoughts? Why are you not okay with that?
And I'm not saying I'm not okay with it, but I think it's a trope that a lot of us get into. And the reality is, I mean, in both our fields, the way that you get pushed forward is somebody pushed you on. So I feel like I think a lot of times a narrative that gets pushed to us is pull yourself up by your bootstraps, because that's what the narrative is, and just be independent and do it on your own, and it's just your good hard work. We live in a country that is built on nepotism. And I'm not saying that that's what you should aspire for, but it's built on nepotism and legacy and people putting you on just because they know you. I mean, part of what you and I do in terms of our relationships with our colleagues is when we're getting ready to do a project, we reach out to the people that we know that they do good work, and we've built relationships with those people. And so then that is how you kind of move to the next level. And so I I'm bothered by this pretending the only way that you make it in this country, the best way to make it in this country, is that you do it on your own. I understand why she wants to have her own identity and have her own brand. I totally agree with that. But don't act like somebody don't need to put you on the first time.
Got you. Um, I I understand what you're saying, and I don't disagree. I just think that the subtle nuance is: do you want it to be? Do you want? At what point does it mean when certain people put you on that you'll always be in their shadow?
I
So
don't know.
that's just the caveat, I think. And so that's
Yeah.
why I'm saying that's why I like this, because it wasn't heavy, but it was complex, and I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate that.
Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there is a point where you end up being in some shadow consistently, and I don't have an answer to that. I just don't like that. I have talked to young people, even my daughters. Sometimes I have to remind them, you need people to help you. You know this. We talk about this in terms of our own daughters. You're like, oh, call such and such, and you're young, you're doing well. People want to help you when you're young and you're doing well, you're doing the right thing, you're on the right path. People want to support you so you can get where you want to go. And I am really just cautious about this message of like not relying on people that care about you. I'm not saying use people. I'm not saying be harmful or let people be harmful to you, but just this whole idea of like, I'm just going to do it on my own, I think is a little naive without any other support.
But she does it though. Isn't that one of the outcomes. She does have, she's, by the time, I guess this is a spoiler, but I mean, she doesn't totally crash and burn on her own, right?
No. Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
Okay, so,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
sometimes you have to show yourself.
That you can do it. Yeah.
Right. I think so. There was a case where I entered some of my work as a historian for a prize that was being awarded by a professional organization. And I won the prize. And when I tell you, I felt so much better about my work, the quality of my work, and I felt that this was an objective imprint, right? An objective perspective on it. I was just very grateful and happy, and I got a boost from it. Then someone pulled me aside and said, "Oh, that essay was so great," and told me, what was great about it. And I was like, I guess I made a face, and they were like, "Oh no, don't get me wrong. It was objectively great. It wasn't like, I'm not just telling you this because I knew you before, right? And I know your character or whatever." So yeah, she could see, like, I immediately felt disappointed. And that's interesting because I didn't realize that was what was going on until she responded, right? Then I was like, oh, I am kind of feeling a certain way. And obviously it showed on my face. And so I think I was really, really invested in having this sort of objective measure of my work and its quality and all that kind of stuff. So I do think, I don't, it's complex if it's your boyfriend and you felt like, your affluent boyfriend who's well connected and he's trying to put you on. I mean, as I tell my husband all the time when he says, "Oh, you listening to these people, you listen to these strangers about your work, and I always told you I believed in your work." I'm like, "You biased. You biased." He's like, "No, I'm not." And so that's a little bit different.
Okay, let's talk about the big Ollie guy in the store, in the bodega, who talking about they could have been the next Russell and Sierra. I loved him. I loved the character.
Tell me why you loved him.
Because it's so inappropriate. That's the thing I liked about a lot of the stuff. It's inappropriate. I love, because I tell you this all the time. Like, you hear all these kind of racist stereotypes about, like, who likes Black women. I was like, I can tell you right now, everybody loves some Black women. They're always pushing up on African American women. And so for him to, like, immediately be flirty with her, I thought was hilarious. I love the mother coming in, and the one scene when she's trying to get the Pop-Tarts on the top, and he's behind her, and he has an erection, and the mom is like, "You're trying to, what did she say? You trying to have sex with my with my son?
Like, you trying to molest my son? He is. Did she say he's a child? Mom was not feeling it. So I don't. Okay, so I agree. Like I said, okay, so I don't know if I said this already, but I thought that the show was quite inclusive and not. I didn't feel like it was in a pandering way, but maybe, some other people have different perspectives. But I thought it was diverse. And because I've seen some stuff out there that's just like, okay, let's check the box. Have to have, and it didn't feel that way. So I appreciated young man who worked in his obviously family bodega who was pushing up. I don't necessarily. So I do agree there are all these conversations about who does and does not want Black women all the time in public, in the media. I don't want Black women because they're loud. I don't want Black women. I don't want a Black woman because I want a swimmer. I heard that. And somebody says, "What's a swimmer?" A swimmer is somebody who can go swimming and not even think twice about it. Like just random, crazy, digging into stereotypes, denigrating, just awful things you hear about who does and doesn't want, or who doesn't want Black women. So I I appreciate what you're saying about this scene and how it is a nod to the idea that everybody wants Black women, and everybody, when we say everybody, I'm assuming you mean people of all different kind of backgrounds, racially, ethnically, will, push up or make passes at Black women. Right. But I don't think that that's always respectful. So back to this objectification issue and idea, I don't think that it's always respectful. So some of it is I'm pushing up on Black women because according to my perceptions, according to the stereotypes, they're sexually available to any and everybody. I'm pushing up on Black women because I have a fetish. I have someone in my life who said that a lot of their interactions with people, like you said, from all backgrounds, can be, I have a butt fetish, you have a big butt, and I know you'll be extra receptive because you're very dark and you couldn't think much of yourself because people don't think much of very dark-skinned women. So all kinds of, again, back to the nuances, I appreciate that they wrote the character as if he had a genuine sort of interest, not a fetish per se, not a, I'll do this.
A little bit of a fetish, but go.
Wait, what did he say? Over the edge, yes, you can be, I could be the Russell to your Sierra, but what else?
I can't even remember because all of it was just inappropriate. Because when he's like, the groceries are free for like beautiful women, move upstairs. I don't know. He had all kinds of like little games.
Yeah. So, but I thought, well, it was ambiguous. Let me just say that. As to whether or not then this was a fetish or his immaturity.
It's probably a combination of things that were going on. And you know what I appreciated about the mother? Like, even though the mother was like one of those kind of stereotypical protective mothers talking about, you molested my son, when it was clear that her son was doing something to the woman. What I liked is it didn't come from any racial space. I didn't feel like it was racial at all. It was like, this is all you American girls want to do, is have sex and not get married? So it was kind of, and even when Mavis said something like, I appreciate as a woman of color that you're doing it and you own this business and the building, and she's trying to connect with her around that, and the mom is looking at her like she's crazy. There's never a time where I get a sense that she's hostile to Mavis because she's Black. Hostile because maybe she's an American and molesting her son, but which is very different. So I just liked the interaction, and I like the fact that it was like, how many times do you watch a show and then you see Bengali folks, and particularly the son is more of a darker skin person. That's just not something you see on television. I liked
I don't disagree with your perspective. I don't know if I would say that the mother's reaction, hey, you Americans, you just want to have sex and you're not interested in marriage, is very different from a racialized reading, because we didn't get to see how she might have responded to a white woman who was flirting with her son, right? So it could be, when I think of Americans who only want to have sex and not want to get married, this Mavis fits the bill. But then this other person may be like, okay, so can we arrange something? Right? She might have, um, so it's hard to tell. It's very hard to navigate. But I agree. I think that the scene was written in a certain way, in that particular context, to sort of focus on it as, like Mavis is men of all stripes, all ages find Mavis attractive, and she's open, to at least having fun, right? And she's open to experiencing the pleasure of flirting and that kind of thing. So yeah, I understand. And I was waiting for the "and you black girls" kind of, shoe to fall, and it didn't, and that was refreshing. That was a large part of what made the scene refreshing.
And I guess that's why I'm sorry.
No, I just want to say, but at the same time, I don't want to leave this conversation as if this is that as if your point wasn't valid, because also someone in my life had a long-term relationship with a young man who was, had an Indian parent. So that was also refreshing, because when I grew up where I was growing up in Alabama in the long time ago, the only experiences that I had with Desi people who were middle class, were fraught with racism, anti-blackness for a very long time. So yes, it's refreshing to meet people who are Desi and who are not rabidly anti-black, who are openly respectful and attracted to women of all backgrounds, including Black women across the spectrum, in terms of size, in terms of color. And I think it's also important to understand that, all people are very diverse, with very diverse perspectives. Because one of my daughters is really into like all things Caribbean carnival, right? And she likes and follows pretty closely like the Caribbean Trinidad carnival songs. And she was like, yeah, like this one, listen to this, Mom. It's very interesting. It's obviously a man who's obviously of Desi background, who's saying his hook is bone is for dog, meat is for man. And that's the that's the salacious reference to I like thick women.
Got it. Well, and I think because I was expecting something to have some kind of racial undertone, and that it wasn't there. That's why I was saying, for me, I experienced it as like, oh, okay, this is just, you darn Americans. You're right. I mean, there was nobody, there's no comparison of how the mom was acting. I just expecting one thing, and I didn't see it. And so I thought that was refreshing with that part. But let's move to Luca. So first of all, and I think Luca is confusing to me. So Luca becomes the love interest, and after she leaves Jacques, and he's from Italy. And so Luca becomes one of those people for me that I struggle with who I've decided, and I've never been to Italy before, but who I decide an Italian looks like. And so, of course, I had to look up the actor because I was like, he's Italian? So I just want to start with that, about our ideas, like even with Americans, so kind of this generic term of American. When we say American, we know like when people are saying that. So like if a news article says that they're American, then they mean white. So everybody else doesn't get included in that categorization. And I thought it was interesting immediately when he said that he was Italian because of the way that he looked. I was like, how is he Italian? Now, I know Italians can have like a more of an olive skin, but he had a lot more melanin, and had a lot more curly hair. He looked to me like a light-skinned Black person. And then I figured out why he looked like that. And so then it made me realize that I'm doing that same thing if I'm deciding who can be Italian. So I'm wondering what you thought when you first saw him and he announces that he's an Italian.
Yeah, I had the same. Yes, I had a similar internal dialogue because this could be because I'm from Alabama. And a large part of social interactions have been, what are you? What category do you fit in? What box are you in? Was that the reality of growing up in Birmingham, Alabama? No. In my school experiences, I had Lebanese, lots of Lebanese American classmates, indigenous classmates, just so many people, a classmate from Bangladesh who didn't fit these boxes that were created to maintain social hierarchies in a place like Alabama. But my first, like, again, my internal dialogue is, what is he? So then when he says he's Italian, then I didn't say, oh, he's not Italian. I just thought, oh, he must be Italian of North African descent, because I'm a little bit familiar of how people exist in the Mediterranean world and migration patterns over hundreds, am I in the thousands of years. So I hear Italian and I think, oh, that's his nationality, but Italian may not be his ethnicity. So when they start to write about, when the character starts to talk about the advocacy work he does, I said, oh yeah, I'm thinking that that's what they're suggesting. And so I didn't look up the actor until I was reading reviews for this talk, and someone wrote, another thing I didn't like, after they introduced this dry trope of woman trying to start over after a breakup, after being cheated on, then they bring in this Italian guy who's cartoonishly good looking.
Cartoonishly good look.
That's what they say.
That sounds racial to me.
It does. No, I didn't think
good looking.
Huh?
I said he is good looking, but cartoonishly?
In the context, I took it as way too on the nose. So he doesn't have quirky good looks like what's the guy's name? I think a lot of people would classify Lakeith Stanfield as a quirky good looking guy, right?
I don't know who
this guy is stereotypically good looking.
Who's Lakeith Stanfield? Sorry, y'all.
The guy who played in The Portrait with Issa Rae. And
I know who you're talking about. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. I think I've read that people say, oh, his quirky good looks but So you have a central character who's obviously beautiful, but not your stereotypically beautiful woman, and then you introduce a love interest who is stereotypically good looking to be worthy of her attention. So that is not that he was, I didn't think that it was problematic that he was a good looking character and that many people could agree about it. My problem was it seemed to be that she rejected characters that would be her, male equivalent. And so then what does that say? Like your love affairs, or the it's almost like the trope is turned on its head, because she says something like, "Oh, when somebody breaks up with Halle Berry, then they say, "Oh, how could they have broken up with Halle Berry? Oh my gosh, they're dumb." But if somebody breaks up with someone like me, they're like, "Oh yeah, she got a lot of problem areas on her body." Right? But at the same time, the men that catch her eye, the men that are worthy of her time, are stereotypically good looking. The boyfriend was, Jacques was, the Italian love interest was, and then a guy who came to put her bed together or something.
He like caught in a rap video. He's caught in a rap video though. From the 1980s.
What now?
I said he's caught in a rap video from the 1980s.
Yeah, but that's what I was thinking. It is a part of it was, I mean, they made him seem utterly ridiculous. So if he was a third very good looking guy who was made to be utterly ridiculous, that would be one thing. But it's almost like, okay, her quote unquote male counterpart in terms of physicality is a total goofball who's out of touch with reality. And the only way you know that she's beautiful, the only way you know that she's desirable, the only way you know that she can experience the same kind of sexual what am I trying to say, pleasure and desirability, is to have conventionally good looking guys.
I like that.
Address or sort of chase after her, right? Desire her.
I like
Pursue
that. I like
her.
that. Well, and I thought that her relationship, and I won't spoil the ending, but the ending of it, I thought it was unrealistic. Coming out of a 5-year relationship and just the handling of that, I thought it was a little messy. That was the only part that of the series where I was like, they could have written that a little bit better, because I think it went a little too formulaic and fantasy, very unrealistic. Where I wasn't feeling that at all. But yeah, I mean, I hadn't thought about what you said. Is you got the one guy at the beginning. I don't even remember his name, and that's a shame that I don't remember his name. So he's kind of, like I said, the hip hop head that's caught in like a 80s video, and aesthetically, if you just thinking about aesthetics, he matches more of her, but then they make him into like this caricature, where you can't even really take him seriously.
Right.
And I wonder why they would choose to do that with him.
That bothered me.
Yeah.
That bothered me.
Another thing that bothered me. Okay, so I was hoping that Nozibele and Corey were on here, because this is I need to talk about fashion for a second.
Wow. I went out of my way to appear on here with my collar flipped up, and I can oh wow. I'm not offended. I'm not at all offended.
Okay, I'm sorry, my good friend. I wasn't saying it like that. I'm saying it because Nole and her whole historic focus on fashion, and then Corey. I don't know if you know that part about Corey. Corey has that too, and kind of got that from her mom. So I'm talking about kind of their focus on that. So I was not super impressed by her dressing. So I thought it was interesting. This might be me. And let me just say this. I love fashion. I love contemporary fashion. I love contemporary African fashion. So that colors the things that I'm interested in because I'm not necessarily interested in who is the latest whatever kind of Western name brand. Like I know, and we haven't even talked about Khalil, her best friend Khalil, when he's helping her move out, he takes Jock's Fendi jacket. And there's a whole thing around him taking a Fendi jacket. I could care less about a Fendi jacket or anything like that. That's not significant to me. Um, but I was really intrigued about her being a stylist and her focus on like styling curvy women. And I was looking at her clothes. There were many points where I felt that she that they could have styled her better. So you and I both know several people. One of our mutual friends in particular who kind of would fit into the size of Mavis's character. Every single time we go out, she dressed to the nines from head to toe. Like she usually looks better than all of us. And I was looking for something like that. I really looked again last night when I watched this for the third time because I was looking at her style and I was just like, I don't see it there. And so I'm just wondering your thoughts. What did you think about her style?
I didn't pay attention to it to validate
Exactly.
what you said. I did not pay attention to it. And
Yeah.
we didn't, I wanted to bring up yeah. Okay, so that's a different topic. But yeah, I did not pay attention. I don't remember thinking she was dressed like frumpily or anything like that. So I'll have to try and look at that on the rewatch to see what I think. But I no, I'm not, as you suggested, into fashion at the same level as Nozibele and I assume Corey. Because I would compliment Corey all the time, like, oh, that's a nice jumpsuit, or, that kind of thing.
She'll have her little thing and she'll be like, oh, I got it from such and such. And so I was just looking for a little more of that. I mean, there was never a time when she was looking frumpy. I was looking for her to be a little more, her style to be a little more tight. And what I mean tight, not physically, not clothes fitting, more tight. But I would have looked like in real life, the stylist, whoever styled her for the show, it didn't feel like it was a stylist that was used to dressing full figured women to help fully complement everything that she had going for her. Because there were definitely times where I was like, why did they put that together there? I think it could have looked different, but that's me because I think about fashion a lot. So, and it may be that because I think about fashion again, that's why I said at the beginning, I'm not really, I like contemporary African fashion, like being able to mix kind of like Western fashion with contemporary African fashion. So the way that I think about fashion and design is very different. And that may be what the issue is, where she's just, kind of dressed in a straight Western style. But you said that you thought it's about something else. What was the other thing you thought?
We didn't stay on her Italian lover long.
Oh, okay.
And beyond him being conventionally handsome and us trying to place him racially or ethnically, even though what is explicitly discussed is his nationality, I thought that the Italian lover was also a trope. Like, what is the Italian lover supposed to symbolize? Because I also watched, what is it with Zoe Saldana, who's in a sort of, I'll have to look it up, but it's set in Italy and it's a Black woman's Italian.
Oh, I haven't seen that. Yeah, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And so I'm like, what is the meaning? What implicit ideas are being telegraphed by centering this Italian lover and stories about Black women and them finding themselves and all that kind of stuff. What do you think?
I mean, I've seen that a number of times with there's this idea like, oh, you got to go get a foreign man, or and even specifically an Italian man, um, in order to get you some good loving. So I wasn't necessarily surprised with that. I think the only thing that surprised me is they get a Moroccan-born Italian to play him. So yeah, but I'm not
Why
surprised
was
by
that
that.
surprising?
Good question. Um, it just was something that was unexpected. Um, that they would situate him as an Italian, like even though he is actually in real life a Moroccan born and Italian. Um, and I think that's just based on my stereotypes, where I like to think that I'm progressive about stuff, but maybe I'm not progressive because I was just simply surprised by that. If they had said he was an Arab, if they had just said he was a Moroccan, I wouldn't have been surprised at all, or Middle Eastern. But the fact that they then censored his nationality of being Italian, um, it was just different for me. I see Estee is here.
Right. Yeah, well, okay. So the TV show was From Scratch, the one I was referencing with Zoe
Oh yeah.
Salzman. And yeah, I had an Italian classmate when I was in the PhD program at Georgia State, and we talked a lot about Italianness and race because there are a couple of it where there's an Italian immigrant, or he was here specifically to earn the graduate credential from Georgia State, and then there were Italian Americans, and we were in a class together where we were reading about a lot of Italian Americans, right? So one the Italian American was very blonde, and she was talking about what it meant to be from a family from Italy who did not embody the stereotype of what an Italian looks like, particularly to Americans. And then the more stereotypically Italian looking immigrant. And he's like, yeah. And then there's the denial in Italy of its African connections and African roots. And a lot of Italian men have children with North African women, East African women, and won't even own those children. So yeah, I can understand why you're surprised that a Moroccan-born person was playing an Italian, but then given the TV show, it wasn't surprising, right? Yeah, the context.
Right. Yeah. Hey, Estee, we only got a few more minutes, but tell us your thoughts. What'd you think of the series? You got it to come off mute.
Hey y'all, sorry I'm late traveling. Yeah, so I like the series. I thought that the series was really realistic, especially from I feel like just a Black woman's experience in kind of telling her own story. So I felt like I related to so many of the mishaps. Of course, one of those favorite scenes for me where it was in the beginning when he's cheating in the bed, but she got to use the bathroom and she just go right past him. And that like then has to stop and be like, wait a minute, what did I just? I feel like that felt very personal to me, uh, about having experiences where you're like, wait, what did I just have? Like where your processing has to catch up. So I thought it was really well written. I thought it was super realistic. I thought it was great. I loved seeing the interplay of her other relationships with her own kind of working out of her agency. I was really glad that they didn't try to like button it up cute and pretty and that she chose herself in the end. Um, and I liked the way they characterized the mother. I liked I thought the queer parts were interesting to me. It did feel particularly with Tasha Smith this character who is kind of doing some sexual discovery around being bisexual. It felt like it was written by a straight person. So myself and my partner watching it particularly Tasha's character, we were like, oh, that doesn't feel realistic. So I thought that part was interesting because the other parts felt so authentic. But I really enjoyed it. It was entertaining, and I hope that we get to see more.
Tell us that part. That part is really interesting when you say you felt like it was written by a straight person. Why? Say more about that.
Oh, sure. Yeah, so it was benign in a way that I don't think is true to the queer experience. It just felt detached. It just didn't feel authentic. Like there was a way, as she is, maybe the most authentic part, or the part that felt the closest, was the therapy conversation. The conversation of like, oh, I think that felt realistic, right? Like this notion of like, oh, I've had sex with women, but it was, it wasn't sex with a woman. It was a threesome, or it was a sexcapade, or it was whatever. So I think that people have varied ways that they enter into their sexual discovery. I think that's different, but it was the way she was kind of interacting with other women, the ways that it still felt like she seemed and looked more comfortable with the man. It seemed like the conversations were different when she was with men than when it was with women. And so that part of it just didn't feel authentic as a queer person, because part of that discovery is the connection, is the community, is being willing to sensually discover and explore. And she wasn't doing that. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. I'm glad you pointed out. Yeah, I didn't think about it like that, but it makes sense. Like when you say it, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, because even when the interactions with the men, the way that those are written, there's more depth to it. And the interactions with women are just about sex.
Mm-hmm.
Very surface and about sex. Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Somebody straight from it.
There it is.
Yeah.
There
I mean, we know that feeling, right? We know the feeling of the white gaze. We know the feeling of like, this is what y'all think about us. It's the same feeling.
Got it.
Yeah. That's why I said other people might have a different perspective on how inclusively written it was, because some things would be a blind spot, right? In terms of my experiences as a heterosexual person, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And thus, I mean, it's not a comparison, but that's also why I said, because I had this interest and focus on fashion, I was hoping that we could have had that discussion with Nozibele and Corey, because I was just like, yeah. I feel like there's something missing with the fashion thing. I don't think that her fashion sense was appropriately represented.
I felt that too, but I felt the same thing. I felt like, I don't know, but I can't grab it, but it felt like there was something I couldn't put my finger on. But the dynamics of it, the politics of it, dealing with the celebrity, like all of that felt just really, really great to watch. It felt really authentic. So those parts I really, really love. But I did get that sense of like, are these the kinds of things that thicker women are actually advancing in fashion, or is this just? Because I think there's a difference in how you shift things for body positivity versus just having the same thing in a bigger size.
And one more thing, I know we got to go. And
yeah, I'm not trying to make this stay long.
We didn't even talk about Khalil, so we didn't even get it. We didn't even center the men.
Oh, really?
Good.
No, that's good. Yeah, and right.
But
sure.
The other thing that stood out to me in terms of fashion, and I don't remember the sister's name. So remember the sister that had the lingerie line that Mavis styled. And so
Nicole
to
Byer.
your point, and wait, did you say her name? What did you say?
Nicole Byer.
Nicole Byer, thank you. And so then everything was just bigger. And go back and look at that scene. It was bigger it didn't necessarily, it was bold colors, but they didn't match. And I was like, so what's going on here with the look? And even when Nicole Byer, like Mavis was dressing her in the one scene, she had on a yellow bustier and then some pants, and the whole like outfit, I wasn't understanding it fully. And and then I didn't notice it until the third time I watched it, when they're talking about all the I forget what she calls them, her cuties, and she supposedly styled all these women of different body shapes and ethnicities, and even inclusive with trans women. They never showed them.
They did not. I noticed that too. Because I was like, where are the outfits?
They didn't show not one of them.
Yeah.
Not one. They showed this, and they showed Nicole Byer.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh. And so that's what really made me think, y'all don't know how to really style women that are thick.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you did, that would have been a great opportunity to be like, women that are thicker can do this, and you 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 can still look sexy and beautiful. And none of that happened. And so that would be the only place where I would really have a critique, is like, y'all need to get some real stylists, not just
real fashion folks. I agree with
real fashion folks that don't just make the clothes bigger, but actually make people look good no matter what their body shape is.
That's right.
And I think that's a whole process to be able to do that. And we can have a whole other conversation about like what looks not good and stuff like that. So and get in trouble for some of those comments. Anywho, so it's one we gotta stop. Closing thoughts or comments about this show?
Watch it. It's still fun.
Yeah.
I really liked it.
Yeah. Watch it.
Yeah, I definitely say watch it. Enjoyed it. I hope we get to see more stuff like this, because it was it was a great thing to just watch and laugh, and you don't have to think about too much. So
I will say too, the trans part and the club part, that part felt really authentic. It was more the relationship and the sexual exploration part. So I want to say that. So that part felt very reminiscent to my experience.
I wanted to say one
I'm not
thing.
trying to. Go ahead. I know it's my fault. Feeling.
No, what I loved about like Peppermint's character, I loved Peppermint's character, and I loved the fact that when Peppermint was interacting, whether it be with Luca, whether it be with Khalil, you never saw any kind of anti-trans, any kind of homophobic response. So like at one point, and is like asking Khalil to make the boots, and she's like, "I'll give you $500 and a piece of ass." And I don't have any response to that, except that he don't do commissions. And I love that, you know.
Yeah,
and
it
so
was well handled for sure.
it was each moment like that. I saw, and I thought that those were kind of teachable moments for anybody. You know, if that's not what you're into, you don't have to act crazy. You know, you can have a diplomatic response. And even, okay, last teachable moment, because we did not talk about Jade at all, the crazy roommate with the olive oil. Oh, it's hilarious. And at the one point when they're all like, I can't remember. I can hear the song in my head, but I can't remember who raps that song. When they're like, stop, drop. And they're like thinking that she's about to say the N-word. And she was like, buddy's got to, and they were like, oh, okay. I thought that was a teachable moment. This is how you handle that. I love that.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, no, that was good. That was good. I agree.
Anyway, y'all watch this. If you are watching afterwards the recording, please do us a favor, like it, share it. We will be here next month. We are here every Friday talking about all kinds of different topics. Today, I was joined by my sister Estee, Nena, Dillard, Okunsade, Mawasi, who is the owner of Endless Spiritual Consulting, and she is also a Reverend and a queer sexologist. And then also my sister friend, Dr. Kenja McCray, who is assistant professor of history at Clayton State University. We will see y'all next month. Oh, and I guess I should say my name before I say anything. And I'm Dr. Ifetayo Ojelade, the owner of A Healing Paradigm. Again, we'll see y'all next month. Take care.